Okay, well, it certainly is an honor to have all of you with us this morning. As I said, I'm so glad that you guys are here. Today's message, I just want to let you know right up front that today's message is specifically geared towards those people who might be discouraged right now. It's so easy to get discouraged in life, to get to a place where everything seems like it's going against you. And so if you're hurting in your life right now, it has been my prayer all this week that this message would speak to you and actually encourage you, give you courage to go on. If you're just joining us, we're in the second week of a three-part message, and it all comes from a little book that's found in the Old Testament about what we call a minor prophet, a guy by the name of Haggai, or Haggai. You could say it any way you want. But if you missed last week, I want to sort of give you the backstory or the overview of what was going on at the time that this was unfolding, so you can understand the main story. And then we'll get into the second part of this series. Last week we talked about how a long time ago, King Solomon, who was the wisest man who ever lived, he got special wisdom from God, and he built a temple. He was instructed by God to build a temple for God, and it was just incredible. Unfortunately, we don't have actual pictures of it, but we are told it is described, and it's absolutely incredible. This temple at that time, to build a structure like this was just amazing. I mean, it was so amazing that people would come from all over the world just to see it, just to take a look at it and to show God honor and to see the glory of this magnificent structure that had been built in his honor. Unfortunately, as we also know from the Bible and from history, after King Solomon died, he was a good king, but after he died, the people sort of lost interest in God. They kind of drifted away. They got distracted, as we as human beings so often do. It's so easy to get distracted from your goals, and they got distracted. Maybe they had good intentions. They probably did, but oftentimes we have good intentions, but it's just so easy to get off track, isn't it? You set a goal, you start moving towards that goal, and then all of a sudden you get distracted. And so these people, they actually began to just think of themselves and their own wealth and worship idols, actual idols from other religions that were all around them. And so God allowed a certain series of events to take place to kind of help steer them back towards God and his plan for their life, so that their focus could be kind of adjusted. And we talked about last week how this temple was destroyed. This amazing temple that people travel from all over the world to see was destroyed in 587. King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians, they marched through and they destroyed the entire city. They destroyed the whole southern kingdom of Judah, including destroying this beautiful and amazing temple. And to add insult to injury, the Babylonians then took a whole bunch of people into captivity. The Jewish people, the Israelites, were taken into captivity, and they were enslaved in captivity for over 50 years. And so you can only imagine how exciting it was when they finally got to a point after all these years and years and years and decades, when the first group of Israelites were allowed to travel back to Judah. They were allowed to go back and to begin to rebuild their homeland. And so they're very, very excited about this. And under the governor Zerubbabel, that's one of my favorite Bible names. Isn't that a cool name, Zerubbabel? I wanted to name our first son Zerubbabel, but my wife wouldn't let me. But that's a great name. So under Governor Zerubbabel, about 50,000 people, they traveled back to rebuild their city. And their first priority, because they felt like God had delivered them, their first priority was to begin to rebuild a house for God, a new temple. God had delivered them, so they're going to rebuild this temple. They're going to worship God, and they got the foundation done very quickly. And they also built an altar so they could at least worship God. Even if we're not going to build the whole temple, let's get started there. So they started having services. They were allowed to have services again. And then they kind of met with some resistance. There were local people around there, other people who weren't, and they didn't like what they were doing. And so they got some resistance. And so guess what they did? They gave up. They surrendered their whole idea, their whole plans of rebuild. They said, maybe this is not the right time to do something like this. And so they gave up. They stopped all construction on this project. And then for about 14 more years, this unfinished temple just kind of sat there with no progress at all. Like they didn't build any walls or any door. It just kind of sat there. And so God called upon the prophet Haggai, this guy who worshiped God. He was a good man. And so God spoke to Haggai and said, I want you to get these people back to work. And he basically said, don't focus on your own houses and enriching yourself right now. It's time for you to focus on building a house for God. Put God first in your life. And that was all last week. That's where we ended up last week. So we're going to pick it up right where we left off. This is in Haggai chapter 1, verses 13 and 14. This is in your sermon notes. This is what Scripture teaches us happened then. Then Haggai, the Lord's messenger, gave a message from the Lord to the people. And he told them, God said, I am with you. Never forget, I am with you. You're not alone in what you're trying to do here. I am with you. And I'm going to come back to that statement here in just a minute, because that is still a truism in our life. We'll get back to that. But God says, I am with you. Verse 14, he said, so the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, and he stirred up the spirit of Joshua, the high priest, and God stirred up the spirit of the whole remnant of the people who were there. So God stirred up their spirit. God encouraged them. He encouraged the governor. He encouraged the high priest, and God encouraged all of the people. And look, God still does this. God was working this way thousands of years ago. This is exactly how God works today. In my life and in your life, God will often stir up your heart. God will speak to you and encourage you to go on to do some extraordinary things. God uses ordinary people to do really extraordinary things, and God will give you hope sometimes. When there's no reason to hope, you will find hope welling up within yourself, hope that you can accomplish something. God did this for the people then, and God does this for people today. He gave them a sense of hope and faith, and he still does that kind of thing. For us today, this can still happen in your life. Many of you have probably experienced this at some point. God encouraged them and gave them courage. That's what encourage means. He gave them courage to continue on. And this happens for those of us that are still serving him today, if we're followers of Jesus. There will be times like out of the blue where you feel like all of a sudden you can accomplish this. God gives you that spirit. And I think sometimes, you're hopeful that will happen, because if you just let the routine of life bring you down, it will. It really will. It'll seem like there's nothing going on in your life. You'll feel kind of hopeless. And so the story continues, and it says, the people, they came and they began to work again. This encouragement from God caused them to come back to work. And now they're thinking, you know what, we can do this. We really can. Yeah, it's been sitting here. We started this a long, long, long time ago, and then somehow it just kind of languished there, but we're going to build God a temple. We can do this, and they come together. And so for about a month, they're working hard. I mean, they're double shifting and all this kind of thing. And guess what happened? After about 30 days, guess what happened? They quit again. They just stopped. Like here they are. We're all encouraged. Yes, God, this will be great. We can do this. And 1 month later, they forget all about it. And the way it unfolded, it wasn't resistance from outside that they had this time. They stopped this time because they had one of these big festivals. About 30 days after they restarted after 14 years, they start again. About 30 days later, they have this huge festival, this religious festival, and people gathered. People, 50,000 people, and also more people now. They began to gather around the new temple, gathering around the construction site. And as they looked around it, they sort of thought, is this all there is? Is this, we're going to have this festival? This is kind of pathetic. You guys, you have a foundation, you have an altar, but this isn't very much progress. And all of a sudden, everybody's looking around, and they got really discouraged again, because, they thought it should have been more by then. The guys working on it, they were kind of embarrassed, I would imagine. Like, hey, we're doing the best we can. We're working double shifts, Sorry if you don't like it. They're kind of insulted, and so they quit. 1 month into it, these people are ungrateful. They don't really like what we're doing, so we're going to go ahead and quit again. We can do this. Yay, we can do this. Let's get it done. And then they stop. They just quit again. But listen, don't judge them too quickly. Don't rush to judgment here. How often does this kind of thing happen in your life? How often does it happen in my life? We're going to do this. Yes, we can do this. You get all excited about it. Get her done, and then we flame out before we ever complete the thing that we set out to accomplish. I've done this. Not proud to admit it, but I have done this. Back in 2001, when I was an Army officer serving at Fort Knox, me and a couple of friends of mine, we would work out together, and we decided that we were going to enroll in a course called Combat Medic, we're going to be combat medics. And there's a certain badge that you get to wear when you become a combat medic, and it's a pretty prestigious award to have. And so we're getting ready for this very difficult course. And to do this course, you actually have to end up doing all kinds of really special stuff. And one component of this course was that you had to do a long distance march, 25 miles, a 25-mile march with a 40-pound pack on your back. Now keep in mind, I was 40 years old at this point. I was 40 and I was trying this. Normally this is something that younger people would try to do, but I was all excited about it. My friends who were younger than me, they were getting ready to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I bet I could do that. Yeah. And so I do the research. I do research on long distance marching and hiking. And I talk to those people who had done it, because I'm doing my due diligence, and I got it all figured out. And I go out and I get these really high-speed, expensive gear. I mean, this stuff that can help you. I got the special socks that wick away moisture. And I got these boots. They were really high-tech boots. They're Gore-Tex and Kevlar, and they had the speed laces and everything, and they're really, really good. And at this point, the Camelback system was coming out. That's a pack you wear on your back. It's got water and a hose, and you can stay hydrated and all that. And I'm set. I've got all the latest and greatest, and I'm very, very encouraged. And so we decided one Saturday we're just going to go for it. We were doing some runs and some long distance stuff, 4, 5, 6 miles, 8 miles. So I'm thinking, yeah, let's do this. And so we decided Saturday morning, we're soldiers. We're in good shape. We're going to do this. And really, how hard can it be? I mean, people do this all the time, right? And so we're going to try it. 8 miles in, I'm hurting. And doubts are entering my mind, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? This is kind of nuts. Why am I doing this? 16 miles in, no kidding, 16 miles. I'm confessing my sins to Jesus just in case. Because I just don't know if I'm going to make it. Another mile, 17 miles, and I'm done. I'm cramping. I have this nasty rash. I'm throwing up, right? My friends, they're all younger than me, but I can see it in their eyes. They're like, Robert, can we stop? So one of the guys, we flip. And this guy lost, and he calls his wife and says, come pick us up. Oh, the shame, I'm so glad none of this was on Facebook. We're going to be combat medics. We're going to do this. And then all of a sudden we quit. We just quit, right? Started strong, but couldn't keep it up. And look, we're all like that to some degree. You've done this in your life at some point. There are people who say, like, we can do this. These people, they're thinking they can do it. They really thought they could. We're going to build this temple. 1 month later, they're like, that's it. I'm done. I quit. They just flame out. And I don't know what it was for you guys in your life. But you make a plan. You decide you're going to do something. Like you think, well, maybe we're going to get out of debt. You know what? We're going to get out of debt this year. This is the year we're going to do it. We're going to pay off all of our bills. Oh, wait a minute. It's already October. That means the Christmas is coming up. And, we can't really, we got to use our credit cards again. I mean, it's Christmas, right? We forgot about that. We just can't do it right now, but we will do it. So you think you're going to start, but they don't. Or you think, I'm going to go on a diet. This is the year. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to lose this extra weight. That's really, you should tell everybody I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then you go to the store and you find that double stuffed Oreos are on sale. Half off. Come on, Nutter Butters too? Forget it. I'll diet later. Or you want to go to the gym. This happens all the time. Every year in January, gym membership soars, right? By February, where are they? Right? They're not there anymore because they start strong, but then they flame out. That's what happened. We do this. We don't make enough progress, or we feel like it's getting harder, or it's inconvenient, or whatever. We get incredibly discouraged because we quit. And we all have something we can look back on and say, man, I really wanted to do that, but I didn't. That's exactly what happened to the people in this story. This is exactly where they are. So now that you know that feeling, think of these people, because that's where they are. We're going to do this for God. I mean, God has called us. God brought us out of captivity. We're going to do this. Oh man, it's hard. It's tough. We didn't think it was going to go. We thought it'd be easier. We just thought if God wanted us to do it, it would be easier. They got incredibly discouraged and they quit. God had Haggai ask them this question though, and it's almost like God is trying to get to the root of the problem. God wants to kind of speak to their hearts again and get to the root of their discouragement. If you're discouraged today, or maybe you've been discouraged, you know somebody who is. One of the reasons that we get discouraged, we're going to find out as we look at this story in Haggai, but we're going to find the answer to this question. Haggai chapter 2, verse 3. Haggai asked them on the behalf of God. They quit, right? The festival goes on. It wasn't what they expected, so they quit. And Haggai says, just a simple question. How many of you guys who are left here saw this house in its former glory? That's what he had. In other words, Who here is old enough to remember what the actual temple looked like? Who remembers that temple that Solomon built? That's what he's saying. And if, look at yours now. How does it seem compared to that one that was great, that was magnificent? Does it seem like nothing to you? This is nothing compared to what it was. Who of you remembers the former temple and it's so amazing glory? Now look at this thing that you're building. Doesn't it seem like you're not even trying? Two causes for discouragement that happened then and it happens now is this, if you're taking notes. One of the worst things you can ever do is compare to somebody else. Compare something to something else. And that's always going to be bad, always make you feel inadequate. Another thing is lack of progress. That's why you get discouraged, because you're comparing with somebody else, or you're not making as much progress as you thought you would. Comparison and lack of progress. Very common. And these people, they're kind of doing the same thing. They're doing what we often do. They were comparing their start to somebody else's finish. And even Haggai is kind of falling into this. He's saying, how many guys remember the old temple, how great it was? It was amazing. That finished temple compared to your start. We just started. Our temple doesn't look very good. Well, you're right. I mean, it took a while to build that other one too, right? And so that finished one is so much better than our one. In fact, Bible scholars estimate that Haggai, if you study his life, he was about 70, maybe 75 years old when he wrote this book, the book of Haggai. So he's in his mid-70s, which means if you subtract 50 years and maybe a few more years from that, Haggai was probably a teenager when he was in Jerusalem, and he saw the Temple of Solomon. He remembered what that looked like. He probably had been there. You could, he remembers enough that there was this temple. He probably even, you guys remember when you were a teenager and you saw something for the first time? He probably remembers this. And so in his mind, he's falling for this too. Like, that was so great. This is nothing. And I don't know about you guys, but I can get incredibly discouraged when I compare where other people are and I'm not. Well, that guy, he's got this great career. This guy's doing great in his life. Everything kind of fell on track for him. He's got an amazing car and a fantastic house, and I hate my job and I can't stand it. I'm driving around this clunker that barely runs, and I'm renting a closet apartment in a lousy neighborhood. How can that guy I went to high school with, I look on Facebook and he's doing so much better than me? That guy is doing great. As parents, maybe you do this with your kids, because this can get really, really brutal. You have kids, and you're sending your kids off to school, so it's your kids versus other kids. Like their kids, they go to school and they're wearing matching outfits, and they have like healthy baked goods every day to bring in, and it's all really gluten-free and really good stuff, and they already have some college courses they're taking in the 5th grade, and your kid's just barely getting by, right? And you think, well, my kid's barely dressed, I think he had pants on today, at least I hope he did, they're flunking PE, and so by comparison, you begin to think, well, their kids seem like they've got it made, they're doing so, and my kid's not. And then if you want to feel like a massive loser, like I said, go on to Facebook or Instagram or something like that, and you're like, well, man, everybody else was invited, but me, I don't have, they have so many more friends than me. He's traveling again for the 3rd time this year. I don't even have enough money. I can't even afford to go to Kitty Hawk this year. It's right down the road. She's got more likes on her sunset picture, but I think mine's better, but everybody liked hers. Nobody liked mine. And so you're comparing yours with somebody else. That is a recipe for discouragement. That is a recipe for anger in your life. You're comparing all these different things, and suddenly you feel discouraged. What's wrong with me? Their life seems to be going so easy, mine's not. Well, I'll tell you what, you compared. And just like they did in this story, their pathetic little attempt at a temple, to build a new temple, it paled in comparison to the temple that Solomon had built, the one that had been destroyed. And we're like failures. And we feel like a failure, and so we get discouraged. Then there's also this lack of progress thing that I was telling you about. This is your situation. Like, well, we're a month into this, and it's not going very well. You're trying to build a temple. You think, really, with hand tools. Understand, these guys don't have these high-tech tools or anything. They're building it by hand, and so we're trying so hard, but we're not getting anywhere. And so we get discouraged. That's often how we will feel in life too. You say, well, I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to go on a diet. And a whole month into it, 30 days into it, you eat nothing but like kale and almond slivers. You're drinking water, and you get on the scale, and you gained 2 pounds. Like, this is horrible. What is going on here? You're like, what happened? I'm trying so hard. I'm not a slacker. I'm doing the work, but but I'm not seeing any progress. I'm not seeing much progress. I thought it'd go much faster than this. And so, maybe you start a business and you think everything's going to go great. You take one step forward and two steps backwards. I got this regulation and this license. I got to get this. I got to do this. And you're going backwards. And for some of you, maybe it's because you're Christians. Have you ever felt discouraged about your Christian walk? Like you're a Christian. You think, I've been a Christian for a long time, yet I still have problems with this. I still say bad words when I get angry. We're going to church. You're driving to church with your wife, and you guys argue the whole way there because you're late. And you're like, I really thought that at this point as Christians, I'd been doing so much better. Kind of like you would think, right? I would think that at this point as a Christian, I would be doing so much better. And life is just incredibly challenging and difficult. It's like that, I just thought I would have accomplished more by now. So I'm discouraged. I'm trying my best. I'm not making progress. I'm comparing with other people. So of course I'm getting discouraged to the point where you might even think, I'm not even sure this is worth trying. Maybe I just give the whole thing up. It was wrong for me to even try. Maybe that's what some of you guys are thinking. Like, in my marriage, I'm trying to put up with this person, and yet they're not even trying. It feels like only one of us is trying in this marriage, and I'm not getting anywhere. Some of you guys, you're praying for your kids, and you're giving them good advice. You're giving your children good advice, but your kids go on and make these really goofy and even foolish decisions. You're like, why won't they listen to me? Could you be any more? It's just discouraging. It gets really, really discouraging because you tried everything you knew to try, and yet these bad things still continue to happen. You continue to still have a hard time. You think, I don't know what to do. I just give up. I give up. And it could be any number of things. You guys, maybe you have that one secret sin and you've been dealing with it for years. You're a Christian. You come to church. You pray, God help. God, take this away from me. I've been a Christian a long time. And this one thing seems to have control over my life. God, I don't know what to do. Maybe it's not even worth trying anymore. Obviously, I'm a loser. I just can't get past it. You wake up one day and you think, I'm just tired. I'm not there. People make it look so easy, but it's so hard for me, and you're discouraged, just plain old discouraged. I'll be honest with you guys. I get discouraged a lot. And I want to be real with you guys so I'm just a guy doing the best he can. But the truth is I live with discouragement often. Sometimes it's just like low-grade discouragement. Sometimes I get discouraged, just a little bit. But sometimes it's really, really heavy. Sometimes I feel really, really discouraged, and I'm very critical of myself. I think that I'm a loser sometimes. I think I just did such a bad job, I'm discouraged in my own sin. Like, I'm a Christian, I'm a minister, okay? You would think that I would have control over some of these things that have plagued me for years, but I honestly still struggle with stuff. It doesn't go away just because you're a Christian. I can tell you it doesn't go away because you're a minister either. It makes me sick, and I get discouraged because I never feel like I'm doing well. I always feel like God must be disappointed in me somehow. And number two, I feel like I'm not really good at what I do. I sometimes I think I'm not. Like, after this message today, let me tell you what will happen. You'll go home and you'll have, hopefully a good lunch. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll go home and I'll think, you know what? I should have said this. I should have said that. I'll be consumed with this thought. Oh, it's the most important thing, and I know I didn't make that point. And so, I feel this responsibility. I feel a sense of responsibility. I'm supposed to be helping you guys connect with God and follow Jesus faithfully. And sometimes I just feel like I'm not getting the job done. And so I can really pile on. I'll take that thing out and I'll beat myself with it. You guys know what we're talking about? Something from your past, maybe even. Like, you got something in your past and you regret it so much. You know it's forgiven. You know it's over with. And you've moved past it. And yet every once in a while you'll take that thing out and you'll just beat yourself with it. Won't you? Oh, I still can't believe I did that. And I try to help people. I want to help people have good marriages and stuff. And then sometimes I still fight with my wife. And I'm so sorry about that. I just sometimes feel like I work hard trying to make a message that makes sense. And sometimes I look out you guys and it's like, I'm not even connecting. Do they even know what I'm talking about? You guys know what I'm talking about today? Do you raise your discouragement? You guys know what I'm talking about? Oh, okay, a few of you guys. So that encourages me. I'll go on. So I work hard and I try to bring God's word to life, but it's difficult. So there are tough times sometimes. And I try to stay Christ-centered. And then, I hope people in the church will too. But then it becomes football season. And people are like, well, it's football season, Robert. You can't expect us to come to church, especially on the West Coast. Here it's not such a big deal because we get out before football starts. So that's great on the East Coast. On the West Coast, people don't come to church because football starts at 9 a.m., right? So they're watching football. And they're like, well, come on, it's football. Or it's racing season. Or it's summer. The weather's so nice, I just got to get to the beach one more time. I don't care what's going on in church, really. And so that's discouraging. I feel like that's my fault. It's not my fault, but it feels like it. And that just happens. It does. There are sometimes people will get their feelings hurt at church, and I feel responsible for that, even though I had nothing to do with it. But it's a responsibility that I bear. We all have these things where in life we feel that we're not making progress. We're not doing good enough, and it gets hard, and we just want to quit. And you're thinking, why are you telling all this, Robert? I'm trying to show you that this happens to everybody. It happened thousands of years ago to those people. It happens to me. I know it happens to you too. And I'm telling you so we can all be depressed together, right? Misery loves company. Let's all have a pity party. Actually, I don't want to just whine. I want to show you what happens here because this is kind of amazing. We live in the real world. We face these real world problems all the time. So they're doing this, and they're trying the best they can, and they get discouraged. What do you do? How do you fight discouragement? What can you do? How does God seek to help us kind of not get discouraged when we're having a hard time or we're not making much progress? What do you do when you live with this discouragement? I want to show you what God tells the people at this point because they're right here. They're in the thick of this. This is exactly what they're going through. They have the same situation going. They're building the temple. It's not going well. It's never going to be as good as Solomon's temple anyways. The people don't care. All that kind of thing. We're doing our best, and it's just not good enough. So God gives them some really loving and simple instructions. The book of Haggai has some really simple instructions. If you remember last week, they're like, we don't know how we're going to build the temple, God. We don't know how we're going to get it done. And God says, let me make it simple. I'll give you guys this. It's a 1, 2, 3 plan. If you missed last week, you kind of missed a lot. You can go and listen to it. But God basically says it's just 1, 2, 3. Here's what you do, folks. You go up to the mountain. Step 1, you go up to the mountain. Step 2, you chop down the timber and you bring it down. Step 3, you build the temple. That's it. Go up to the mountain, get the wood, bring it down, build the temple. And that's what we have to do sometimes. You just have to do exactly what just do the next thing that God told you to do. And you choose the hard right over the easy wrong. That was last week. We talked about that. This week, when we get discouraged, what do we do when we're facing discouragement and want to quit? Watch how loving God is, and it's amazing in this scripture. He talks to the governor and he talks to the high priest. He's encouraging them, and he encourages the people, and he tells them this in chapter 2, verse 4. God says, "But now be strong, Zerubbabel." Now is not the time to be weak. Be strong, Zerubbabel. He tells Joshua, "Be strong, Joshua." He tells all the people, "Be strong and work." That's the plan. Be strong, don't quit, and work. I'm going to say that again, because you might not have got that. Here's God's 2-step plan this week. Be strong, don't be a quitter, and do the work. God says, but this is the important part, and God says this, because I'm with you. That's so important. That's so important here. What do you do when you're discouraged? God says essentially 2 things. He says, be strong and do the work. You're discouraged right now. I get it. What do? I man up. I step up. I pull on my big boy pants. I do the work. That's what God says. When you're discouraged and you want to give up, don't give in to that. God says, be strong and do the work. And really, the really great news is that we don't have to be strong. We live in New Testament times. We don't have to be strong in our own strength. Oftentimes, that's when we fail. We're trying in our own strength. We live in New Testament times, and in the New Testament, it teaches us that when you are weak, God is strong in your weakness. You are made perfect through his strength. God will be there to make up what you lack. In other words, I don't have to be strong in my own strength. Yeah, I may not have what it takes, but I've got this supernatural strength that comes from God. In fact, Scripture teaches this, and you can write this down. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead. That's pretty strong. That's pretty amazing. That same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead resides in you. Now it's inside of you. That same strength that God used to raise Christ from the dead is now inside of each one of you. You don't have to be strong in your own strength. In fact, when you can't do anymore, when you're about to give up, that's when you become a perfect candidate for God to use. That is exactly the person that God is willing to use. Not somebody who thinks they got it all made. They're all that and a bag of donuts. Not those people who have their act all together. When you feel weak and discouraged and you can't do it in your own strength, you are in a perfect position for God to use you. Notice God doesn't say, talk the talk, but do the work. He didn't say that. Notice he didn't say, dream your dreams, but do the work. He didn't say that. He says, compare results, but do the work. No, he simply says, be strong. Don't quit. Lay one stone upon the other. It might not look like it made much of a difference, but you keep doing that. You keep doing the work. You be strong and you lay down another stone. But it doesn't look like very much. We're working and working and working, and it feels like we're not getting anywhere. Consistently do the last thing God told you to do until he tells you to do something else. This is it. Consistently choose to do the hard right over the easy wrong. That's what you have to do. Consistently lay one stone, put down another stone, put down another stone. Consistency is the key. It really is. Consistently keep on keeping on. It would be easy to go home. It'd be easy to say it's hard. I quit. It's easy to say there's not much to show for it. Anyway, everybody else's looks better than mine. There's not much progress. But God says, be strong and keep doing the work. That's what he said. And it leads to a principle. And I love this. I tell myself this principle all the time. I'm sure you've heard it. I didn't write this, but I love this. You can take this to the bank. Successful people do consistently what normal people do occasionally. That's true. If you want to be successful, you have to continuously do these kind of things. Successful people do consistently what normal people will do occasionally. So you consistently do the right thing. What do? You show up and you do the work and you be strong. You don't let your emotions get carried away with you. You don't give in to the emotion of discouragement. You continue to do the work. You're strong. You continue to open up God's word and seek him daily. You be strong. You continue to do the right thing. Even when you're not getting anywhere, even when you don't see a whole lot of results, you be strong and you continue to work and you do the exercise. Even when the numbers are going the wrong way, you stick to your diet. You be strong. You continue to pay off your debt because that's what God would want you to do. You take a step in the right direction and you keep taking the next step and the next step week after week, month after month, year after year. You continue to do the right thing. You be strong and you continue to love people, even when they're not loving you back. You continue to forgive people, even when they're not forgiving you back. You be strong and you bring your best, even when everybody on the team is not bringing their best. You do it for you. You do it because God has called you to do it. You be strong and you show honor, even when other people are not acting honorable. These are choices you get to make. You be strong and you continue to love your spouse, even when it feels like you're not getting anything back in return. That's not why you love them. Oftentimes we love people because they love us. And if they don't act like they love us, then we don't feel obligated to love them. That's the wrong way to go about it. You love them. You be strong and you continue to reach out to that person, even when they don't respond. You keep inviting people to church, even when they say they're not interested. You be strong and you continue to love your children. Pray for your children. Stand in the gap for your children, even when they don't do the right things in their life, even when they make foolish choices. You be strong, and you show up, and you do the work, and you stay in the game. When I experienced that discouragement, I continue to say, in the strength of God, I can do this. Yeah, Robert, you're tired. You feel like you're not good at it, but I'll show up, and in the strength of God, I will do this. I do this every single week. When I get here on Sunday mornings, one of the first things I do when I walk in this building is I take a step into the building and I say, this is not me. I'm making myself available for God. I'm making myself available for God to use. In my own talent, my own strength, I couldn't get it done. I'm inadequate. But as I step through those doors, I say, God is going to empower me to do this. Successful people consistently do what normal people do occasionally. You just show up and keep doing it. Watch and see how it works. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, I love this. God knew that you would be tempted to quit. He really knew that you would feel this way. And he says, let us not become weary in doing what? In doing good. Don't get tired of doing what's good. In other words, don't become weary in doing the work. Why? Because at the proper time, and the timing is not your timing, it's not my timing, it's God's timing. At the proper time, we will reap a harvest if, this is a conditional passage here. You notice that? If we don't give up. You will reap a harvest if you don't give up. Will you reap a harvest if you give up? No. That's why that word if is in there. That's really, really a good word there. Be strong and just do the work. Pay attention to this. Be strong and do the work, for I, the Lord, am with you. That's what God declared to these people. And that's the key to all of this. It absolutely is. It's not that you're trying to do it on your own. It's that with God, every time you lay down a stone in his name, you are honoring God. You are glorifying God. When you serve someone, God is being glorified. When you love someone who is unlovable, God is being glorified. When you forgive somebody who did something wrong to you, God is being glorified. When you lift up his name, he's being glorified. And here's why we should not get discouraged, because we're not alone. We're never in this alone. We don't have to go to the temple to honor a sacrifice anymore in the hopes of finding God, but God actually came to us. God came to us, and it was amazing. Therefore, Jesus dwells within those of us who are believers. You guys know that? That you are now the temple. And we're talking about Solomon's temple. We're talking about these different temples. But no longer is there a place where you go where God is. This is a nice building, but it's a building. This isn't where God lives. God lives in you now. Therefore, Jesus dwells within those who are believers. That's why you never have to be discouraged, because you are never, ever alone. He is with you. Be strong and do the work, because I am with you, declared the Lord to these people. And he's saying it to you today. Let us not become weary in doing good, because in the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. If you're discouraged today, remember, God came. He came to this earth and he made a sacrifice so that you could be connected with him again, because your sin had separated you from God. And he's not only, here today, he's with you. Therefore, you can do anything that he has called you to do. You are capable of doing. Obedience is our part. The result is God's part. You don't have to worry about the results. We're not getting anywhere. You don't know that. Obedience is our part. The outcome is God's part. Do you want to know what you're supposed to do? It's really simple. Jesus said here, you got the whole law and all prophets and all that. Love God, love people. Everything else will work out. Love God and love people. One of the ways that we have decided that we're going to love people and serve our community is providing a place this fall for some fun. You may have noticed that our property looks a little bit different this morning as you drove in. It looks a little different, and that's because we're getting ready for one of the most amazing church fall festivals this town has ever seen. We're actually doing something that has never, ever been done in Elizabeth City by any church here ever in the history of time. And I always say this. You'll hear me say, I say this over and over and over again. If we want to reach people that nobody else is reaching, maybe we're going to have to do some things that nobody else is doing. And so we've embraced this idea. We decided we're going to do something that's kind of crazy. We're planting a cornfield. You see the corn in the back, and all around town you see these cornfields. We're planting a cornfield, and we're planting it later than they planted their corn, because we want it to last all the way through fall. And we're going to turn this cornfield into a corn maze. How many of you guys have ever been to a corn maze? Can you raise your hand if you ever? Please raise them. I need to know. How many of you guys? A couple of you. Generally, people take their kids to a corn maze. We took our kids to corn mazes. It's a great place for a lot of fun. What it is you got a cornfield, and you carve a maze into it, and you look at the corn out in the back right now. It's like 7 or 8 feet tall, and so you go into this maze, and it's easy to get lost. And that's the whole idea for kids. This is a lot of fun. You go into a corn maze and you get lost. You find your way out. It's yay, we found our way out. Thank God. I'm never going back in. But it's a fun thing to do. We used to take our kids. We'd take our kids to a place called Fender's Farm. And when our kids were little, my wife and I, we would take our kids. And I was going to college. We were a struggling family, but it was like $5 for each kid. And I think when we started, Daniel was free. So, we were able to afford it. But now you go to a corn maze, and it's about $10 or $12 per person. You got a family of 5, maybe you can't afford $60 to take your kids out to a corn maze, so a lot of people don't. But our corn maze is going to be a little bit different, because our corn maze is going to be free. Like, it's not going to cost them anything. There's going to be no cost for people to come and visit our corn maze. And we're doing this not because we want something from them. We don't even want to take donations. We don't want anything from them. We want to do something for them. We're doing it because we love God. And we want to show our love of our community. We want to show God's love to our community by loving them and help point them in the right direction, so that maybe some point they can connect to God. We're not doing it to grow attendance, although attendance may grow, I don't know. But we're doing it because we love our community. We love people. And we're going to do something really nice. There's no other corn maze in town. The closest corn maze to here is probably about 40 or 50 miles from here. And like I said, it'll cost you money to go to. Our corn maze will have families come onto our property, and we will spend time with them and let them go through our maze, and it's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's really going to take a lot of work. Like, I can't do this all myself. And if you're up for loving your community, if you truly love God, you want to love people, I'm asking you guys to come and help. And we're going to have a planning meeting so you can come and see what all that will entail. But I need your help. We need your help. It's going to be a lot of work. And we also will invite other churches. There are already 2 other Christian churches or Church of Christ churches that will come on a certain day and use our corn maze, because they don't have a corn maze at their church. Nobody else does. We're going to be the only corn maze in town. And we're going to let other churches come onto our property and use our corn maze on certain nights. Because we love other churches too. Because it's not a competition. And we want everybody to be able to enjoy themselves and have some nice fun together. So we're going to have the best fall festival ever. It's going to be amazing. It's an amazing way to let everybody know that we are here and that we love God and we love them too. We don't want something from them. We have something for them. And so does God. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to have the worship team come back up here because we're going to close in prayer. But like I said, or in closing song, and then we're going to have a prayer. More information. I wanted to kind of unveil this. You guys are probably wondering why we plowed up our field. That's why we plowed up our field. You're going to see corn sprouting and growing. Then you're going to see a weird little path through the corn maze. That's all in anticipation of what we're going to be doing. And I will be having a planning meeting in the next couple of weeks. And I would like you to please pray. And please pray and decide whether you will commit yourself to help through this endeavor or not, because I can't do it alone. And I know there are plenty of people here that can help. You might say, well, I'm not really talented. I can't do much at church. Can you come and hand out water? Can you come and point people to the entrance? And could you maybe go in and find kids when they get lost and help them find their way out? I mean, it's just going to be a lot of fun. And it's a great way to meet our neighbors and meet people in our community and have them come together. I just think it's going to be a fascinating thing. And I think it's really going to have an effect on our community, and that's why we're going to do it. We're going to close by singing this song that we started with, Step by